Chapter 1. Shadows Among the Stars. In the vast, unending dark of the galaxy, where the Imperium of Man wages an eternal war against horrors both within and without, there exist warriors who do not roar into battle with banners flying or chains words raised. They are not the thunderous vanguard, nor the fiery hammer of retribution. No, these are the silent hunters, the watchers from the void, the ghosts that vanish into the shadows before the first gunshot is heard. They are the Raptors, born of grim necessity and forged in the fires of pragmatism. The Raptors are a chapter of Adeptus Astartes unlike any other. They do not seek glory. They do not bellow litanies of hate. They operate without fanfare, without the grand pageantry so commonly associated with the Emperor's Angels of Death. Their war is one of patience, precision, and survival, a war of ambush, infiltration, and sabotage, descended from the stoic and somber Raven Guard. The Raptors are inheritors of a legacy steeped in stealth and guerrilla warfare. But even among the children of Corvus Corax, they are considered extreme. Where others would launch headlong into a frontal assault, the Raptors melt into the terrain, strike from afar, and leave no trace. To understand the Raptors is to abandon traditional notions of Astartes' glory. One must look not to the bright halls of Macridge or the brazen valor of the Blood Angels. One must look into the abyssal night, where war is fought not in open fields but in whispering forests, burning ruins, and collapsing hives. There, the Raptors thrive. The Raptors do not believe in martyrdom. They do not worship death. They believe in victory. Cold, calculated, and absolute, their story begins not with thunderous founding, but as a footnote in Imperium's desperate measures. They were born of the Second Founding, sometime after the Horus heresy shattered the unity of the Imperium. As a successor chapter of the Raven Guard, they inherited not only the genetic legacy of stealth and speed, but also the psychological scars of betrayal and near annihilation. Their early history is shrouded in uncertainty, like much of the Second Founding. Records are sparse, perhaps deliberately so. What is known is that the Raptors were deployed time and again to conflicts where overwhelming force was not an option, worlds where the Imperium had neither the resources nor the will to commit larger chapters. These were the forsaken battlefields, the forgotten fronts, and in these places, the Raptors honed their doctrine, from the ash-choked jungles of Lethe Prime to the irradiated urban ruins of Hive Zectrin. The Raptors became masters of the kill zone. They did not conquer worlds by raising banners. They strangled supply lines, eliminated leadership, incited rebellions, and bled their enemies dry. Their armor is a drab olive green, devoid of ornamentation. Their heraldry is simple. Even their chapter symbol, a stylized raptor bird in flight, is utilitarian. Nothing in their appearance suggests the flamboyant nobility of the Ultramarines or the blood-drenched fury of the Flesh-Tearers. Every aspect of the Raptors' presentation serves a purpose: to remain unseen, to blend in, to strike when least expected. And while many chapters of the Adeptus Astartes possess relics and traditions dating back 10,000 years, the Raptors treat such things as distractions. They are warriors of the now. The enemy is not impressed by relics. The enemy is killed by superior tactics, superior firepower, and the element of surprise. In the cold calculus of war, the Raptors are surgical instruments, precise, ruthless, necessary. In the chapters that follow, we will delve deeper into their doctrines, their infamous campaigns, and the grim heroes that lead them. But let it be known from the beginning, the Raptors are not here to inspire songs or tales. They are here to win wars. And in a galaxy where hope is a flickering flame, perhaps that is the highest service of all. Chapter 2. The Shadows of Deliverance. The Raptors were not born on Terra, nor forged in the sacred manufactorums of Mars like their older, more famed cousins. They hail from Deliverance, a planet known for its legacy of rebellion, its history of darkness, and its bond with the infamous Raven Guard. The planet cold and wind-scoured, stood as a stark symbol of survival, much like the Raptors themselves. Deliverance was not a cradle of heroes. It was a forge of desperation. In the underhives of the moon's battered spires, only cunning and restraint ensured survival. This unforgiving environment shaped the psyche of every Astartes who emerged from its shadows. The Raptors were not taught to charge. They were taught to wait, to listen, to stalk. Where other chapters celebrated glorious charges and thunderous war cries, the Raptors found strength in silence. This was not cowardice, as some among the more barbaric chapters dare to claim. This was precision. A blade in the dark does not roar. It whispers. Their gene seed, like their methods, was inherited from the Raven Guard, one of the first founding legions, known for their mastery of infiltration and sabotage. But where the Raven Guard struck with surgical rage, the Raptors took a different path. They chose adaptability over ritual, analysis over emotion. They refined their tactics to near perfection, becoming a scalpel where others were hammers. Many among the Raptors' enemies never even saw their killers. Guerrilla warfare became their art form. They would descend like ghosts onto enemy supply lines, melt into the terrain, and vanish before a single distress call could be made. Entire orc war bands would wake up to find their vehicles disassembled, their leaders assassinated, and their war machines sabotaged beyond repair, and yet no sign of a battle. To the Raptors, the battlefield was not a place of honor. It was a chessboard, one where every move had purpose. Every bullet was calculated. Every breath was measured. Their armor bore the dull green of predatory foliage, making them blend seamlessly with the jungles, ruins, and war-ravaged cities of the Imperium's countless battlefronts. Even their insignia, a stylized bird of prey in mid-dive, reflected their ideology: observe, stalk, strike, disappear. And though their tactics earned them whispers of disdain from more honorable chapters, none could deny their effectiveness. On worlds where full-scale assaults failed, where siege warfare turned to slaughter, it was often the Raptors who were called in, and when they came, they brought the end, not with banners, not with horns, but with the silence of inevitability. Even among their fellow Space Marines, they were seen as odd, loners, pragmatists, and sometimes even defeatists. But to the Raptors, survival was not defeat. A tactical withdrawal was not shameful, it was intelligent. Victory, in their eyes, was not painted in blood-soaked banners or sung in battle hymns. It was written in enemy failure and imperial survival. They were often assigned to war zones deemed too dangerous, too hopeless. The kind of assignments that chewed through entire regiments of the Astra Militarum. And yet, time and time again, the Raptors returned. Wounded perhaps, weary always, but victorious in their own way. As their legend grew, so did the mystery surrounding them. Stories were told among guardsmen of the green ghosts who watched from treetops, who whispered warnings over broken Vox channels, who left caches of ammunition in empty trenches. Superstition turned to reverence, for the Raptors were not just killers, they were protectors, reluctant angels of war. But the Raptors bore no love for glory. They did not stay for thanks. Their duty was never to be seen, never to be known. Their only reward was the survival of others. And for them, that was enough. Chapter 3, The Art of Unseen War. War in the 41st millennium is a symphony of violence. From the thunderous march of titans to the crackling psychic storms of the warp, the galaxy is engulfed in noise. But amid that chaos, the Raptors compose a different song, one of restrained silence and lethal precision. Their doctrine, often dismissed as cowardice by more aggressive chapters, is in truth a masterclass in asymmetric warfare. While others dive into the fray to claim honor, the Raptors observe, dissect, and only strike when the probability of success is at its peak. They do not fear death. They simply refuse to waste it. before battle begins, they're already at work. Weeks, sometimes months in advance, Raptors scout the terrain, monitor enemy movements, sabotage supply lines, and plant false information. They wage war before a single bolter is fired. And when the actual fighting begins, the enemy is already destabilized. Their leaders missing, their tanks unresponsive, their reinforcements diverted by phantom threats. Where most Space Marines would find such tactics beneath them, the Raptors embrace them. They understand that in an age where the Imperium bleeds from 1,000 wounds, victory must come by any means necessary. This philosophy runs through every fiber of their being, from their training to their battlefield roles, to their very culture. They employ marksmen instead of heavy gunners. Scouts are not merely initiates. They are vanguards, elite operatives deployed deep behind enemy lines. Their librarians are not screaming beacons of warp energy, but cold, calculating advisors who extract information from the minds of enemies like surgeons pulling out tumors. Even their tech marines prioritize mobility and camouflage over brute force. But perhaps what sets them apart most is their refusal to engage in unnecessary conflict. A Raptor will not fire simply because an enemy is in range. They will observe, calculate, ask, is this the optimal point of failure? Can more be gained by letting this target live, panic flee? They weaponize psychology as much as ballistics. In many ways, they resemble the Death Watch in philosophy. But where the Death Watch hunts Xenos with elite kill teams and exotic weaponry, the Raptors rely on isolation and attrition. They cut the veins of an army, letting it bleed slowly until only husks remain. Even their interactions with other Imperial forces are marked by quiet tension. Guardsmen often mistake their silence for arrogance. Commissars dislike their unorthodox chain of command, and other Space Marine chapters, particularly the more zealous ones like the Black Templars or Flesh Tearers, regard them with suspicion. Yet when Raptors operate, they leave behind results, not ruins. That is their answer to all criticism. They deploy with speed, often using Thunderhawks modified for silent descent. Their armor is sound dampened, their weapon muzzles engineered to reduce sonic signatures. A Raptor squad can move through a trench, eliminate an enemy patrol, and vanish, all without alerting a single sentry. There are stories of Tau commanders speaking to shadows in the night before their deaths, of Genestealer cults waking to find their patriarchs dead. Their cultists turn on each other by misinformation. The Raptors do not just kill, they unravel. And it's in this unraveling that their genius shines brightest. They are the scalpel to the chains word, the whisper to the scream, the future of warfare, adapted for a galaxy that no longer rewards brute strength alone. Yet, for all their effectiveness, they are rarely celebrated. The Imperium thrives on myth, on spectacle. The Raptors offer neither. Their war is quiet, and their victories unsung. But make no mistake, where the banners of other chapters fall, where last stands turn to mass graves, it is the Raptors who walk silently through the smoke, still fighting, still adapting, still winning. Chapter 4, Forged in Shadows, the training of a Raptor. In the dark corners of the galaxy, where the weak are preyed upon and the stars offer no safety, the Raptors train not to be heroes, but to be hunters. Their transformation from raw recruits to silent executioners is not forged in glory, but in hardship, patience, and the constant pressure of perfection. Unlike many Space Marine chapters, the Raptors do not rush to clad their neophytes in power armor. Instead, recruits begin their journey as scouts, not because they're inexperienced, but because stealth, adaptability, and precision are the foundation of everything the Raptors believe in. They must earn the right to be seen. This training takes place in some of the most inhospitable death, worlds the Imperium has cataloged. These planets are not just deadly, they are sentient in their cruelty. Acid storms, void predators, shifting magnetic fields, and labyrinthine forests designed to disorient the mind are just the beginning. In such worlds, the environment itself is the first enemy. Recruits are dropped in alone, with minimal equipment, and expected to survive, not for hours, but for weeks. Some never return. Those who do are changed, but survival is only the first test. The Raptors push mental discipline above brute strength. Recruits are taught to stalk targets without being seen or heard, to calculate enemy movements and anticipate reactions, to find the exact moment a war turns not through violence, but through leverage. They study history, tactics, human psychology, and Xeno's behavior. They become students of war in its quietest, most terrifying form. And they learn patience, not just the patience to wait for the perfect shot, but the patience to fail. Raptors teach that retreat is not weakness, but a tactical reset. Recruits who grow too eager are punished, not by their instructors, but by the battlefield itself. Every premature shot, every rush decision, is met with simulated death, or worse, abandonment. These lessons sear themselves into the soul. Combat drills emphasize teamwork through minimal communication. A nod, a glance, a change in breathing. These become the tools of cohesion. Silence is not just respected, it is enforced. There is no room for glory-seeking or flamboyance. Every movement must have purpose. Every bullet must count. Unlike other chapters where librarians are rare mentors, the Raptors use theirs as psychological sculptors. Through careful mental conditioning, recruits are taught to manage fear, suppress instinct, and think 3 steps ahead in every situation. Emotions are not repressed, they are repurposed. Anger becomes momentum, fear becomes awareness, pride becomes precision. When a scout finally earns their power armor, it is not a moment of celebration. There is no ceremony, no oaths recited before a crowd. It is done in silence, in a cold chamber, where a veteran awaits with a simple nod. The armor is lighter than most, stripped of unnecessary bulk to allow greater flexibility. Camouflage cloaks are standard issue. Every piece is adjusted not just for survival, but for silence. Even in full armor, Raptors are trained to move like ghosts. Their jump packs are modified to reduce noise signatures. Their helmets contain advanced optics, allowing them to mark targets, calculate wind patterns, and track heat signatures. Their bolters are customized with suppressors and precision optics. This is not war in the traditional sense. It is hunting with holy tools. But perhaps the most difficult lesson a Raptor must learn is when not to shoot. There will be times when the perfect shot lines up, when an enemy commander is within range, when a tank is exposed. And yet, the Raptor must ask, is this the moment? Or is there a greater advantage in waiting? Can panic do more damage than a bullet? This hesitation, this conscious delay, goes against everything a warrior is taught, and yet for the Raptors, it is everything. This mindset creates warriors not just skilled in combat, but dangerous in every form of engagement: infiltration, intelligence, sabotage, and manipulation. They are masters of force multiplication, using small squads to fracture armies far greater in size. And when the training is complete and the battlefield becomes their home, Raptors do not seek victory through strength. They seek it through control. Control the environment. Control the tempo. Control the mind. That is what it means to be a Raptor. Chapter 5. Shadows Among the Stars. War Doctrine and Combat Philosophy. To understand a Raptor's lethality, one must first unlearn what it means to fight like a space marine. The standard Astartes doctrine revolves around shock and awe. Drop pods scream from orbit. Heavy armor crushes resistance, and bolters roar like thunderclaps. Most chapters are sledgehammers, overwhelming, direct, and terrifying. The Raptors, however, are scalpels, silent, precise, deadly in the hands of a patient hand. Their combat philosophy stems from an unshakable belief. The battle is won long before the first shot is fired. Before a Raptor force even touches a planet's surface, they've already studied the terrain in excruciating detail. Satellite feeds, local myths, enemy patrol routes, patterns in weather. Nothing is dismissed. They pore over logistics manifests, enemy command structures, even food supply chains. It's not paranoia, it's preparation. And when they strike, it's never where you expect. They don't descend with thunderhawks or roar into battle lines. Instead, they appear behind you, infiltrating through sewage tunnels, scaling canyon cliffs in the dead of night, or simply walking, having landed miles away and spent days moving silently through terrain. The Raptors break the rules of war not out of arrogance, but necessity. They know their size is small, their resources often limited, so they create chaos, not order. Instead of confronting the enemy's strength, they exploit every weakness. They strike at comms relays, assassinate officers in their sleep, sabotage supply lines, and vanish before reinforcements arrive. And always, they choose when and where to fight. If an engagement is unfavorable, they leave, not retreat, repositioning. This is a sacred tenet of the Raptors. The mission is not to die gloriously, but to win intelligently. One of their favorite tactics is a false advance. A Raptor squad will intentionally reveal itself to lure enemy forces into a trap, a ravine rig with explosives, or a sniper's crossfire. They manipulate their enemy's desire for clarity. When the foe believe they have a target, they commit, and that's when the Raptors erase them. Their use of camouflage and environment is borderline supernatural. Their armor is treated with chameleon patterns. They move through forests, urban ruins, or snowy tundras as if they were born from it. A Raptor isn't simply unseen. They make you forget they were ever there. Communication in combat is silent and minimal. Gestures, coded light flashes, or helmet-integrated Auspex data keep squads synchronized without a single word spoken. And if a squad mate falls, there is no shout, no panic, only adaptation. Another slot in the pattern is filled. The mission goes on. The Raptors also favor unconventional weapons and modified war gear. Bolt guns are often suppressed and modified with precision scopes. Plasma and grav weapons are used not in frontal assaults, but for disabling armor from angles previously thought impossible. They carry melted charges not just to destroy vehicles, but to collapse key infrastructure, bridges, fuel stores, elevators, all with surgical destruction. They rarely use dreadnoughts or heavy tanks, as these break their doctrine of mobility and concealment. Instead, when heavier support is needed, they bring in aircraft, fast, agile gunships, or silent dropcraft capable of exfiltrating entire squads before the enemy even realizes they've been hit. One infamous tactic employed during an insurrection on Varna 7 involved a squad of Raptors seizing a city's water purification plant. Instead of holding it or destroying it, they filled the emergency reserve tanks with sedative compound derived from native flora, causing mass unconsciousness in enemy ranks. By the time loyalist reinforcements arrived, the insurrection was over. Not a shot had been fired in the final hours. Their adaptability also extends to their chain of command. Leadership is fluid, not rigid. Every squad leader is trained to act independently, and every Raptor is taught to think like a strategist. Orders are given in objectives, not instructions. How those objectives are achieved is left to the warriors on the ground. This decentralization allows them to remain lethal even in complete isolation. One Raptor squad, stranded after a failed extraction during the Farsight conflicts, survived for 92 days behind enemy lines. When they finally returned, they had dismantled 2 Tau supply hubs, sabotaged 3 drone factories, and assassinated 4 officers, all with nothing but their standard gear and wilderness survival. To the Raptors, war is not glory. It is not banners and odes and hymns. It is a problem to be solved, and they solve it with terrifying elegance. Chapter 6, The Art of Infiltration, Mastering the Invisible Battlefield. If the Raptors are the scalpel of the Imperium, then infiltration is their steady hand, precise, unshaking, and cold. Where other Space Marines crash into war zones with the subtlety of a comet, the Raptors disappear into them. Their mastery of infiltration is not just a tactic. It's a philosophy, a ritual, a culture. They don't fight from the shadows. They become them. The Raptors train endlessly in the art of insertion, silent movement, cover utilization, camouflage in hostile and alien environments. Whether the Hive City's underbelly, a sulphurous desert, or the dripping foliage of a death world jungle, a Raptor knows how to blend, how to breathe with the terrain. Their armor is specifically adapted for these missions. While other Astartes might boast gold trim or heraldic banners, the Raptor's Mark 7 or Mark 6 power armor is muted, matte, and brutalist in aesthetic. Many even strip their armor of purity seals or extra ornamentation, anything that might catch a glint of light or betray position. They coat their armor with mud, ash, blood, whatever blends. Function over form. Always, when entering an enemy-controlled zone, Raptors employ a multi-layered infiltration strategy. The first step is always reconnaissance in force. Small 4-man fire teams move ahead of the main element, often remaining in enemy territory for days. These scouts avoid conflict unless absolutely necessary. Their purpose is to understand, observe enemy patrol patterns, map out blind spots, intercept local communications. They're not warriors here. They're ghosts with mission. Then comes psychological shaping. This is the most fascinating and terrifying part of the Raptor infiltration doctrine. They don't simply sneak in. They manipulate the mental state of the enemy. Sometimes, it's as simple as leaving signs. An enemy commander returns to his quarters to find a bloody helmet on his bunk. Not a kill, but a message. Other times, it's sabotage meant to feel like incompetence. A broken generator, a missing ammo crate, a dead officer with no signs of entry. These acts create confusion and paranoia. The enemy begins to turn on itself, suspecting internal sabotage, desertion, betrayal. Once the psychological battlefield has been shaped, the Raptors begin pre-assault positioning. They establish sniper nests, forward operating caches, fallback routes, escape tunnels. They don't enter battle without an exit plan. Each angle is covered, each scenario imagined. And then, when the moment is perfect, not before, the Raptors strike. Not from the front, not from above, but from everywhere and nowhere. Bolter fire from a rooftop, a melted charge under an enemy tank. A commander vanishes mid-sentence as a blade finds his neck in the dark. The Raptors don't announce themselves. They reveal themselves in the moment of death. And when the dust settles, they disappear again. A civilian hears a whisper in the night, investigates, and finds only empty footprints in the dirt and a distant, fading growl of a jump pack firing in the dark. But infiltration isn't always about combat. One of the most underrated aspects of Raptor doctrine is their use of observation to influence strategy. During the Tyranid incursion on IAX, a single Raptor kill team spent 3 weeks embedded in a ruin on the outskirts of a Genestealer-occupied town. They made no kills, fired no shots, but their detailed scans of biopatrolling behavior and gestation cycles allowed an Imperial strike force to time its offensive with pinpoint accuracy, eradicating the Genestealer cult in a single, perfectly timed assault. The Raptors didn't fight that war. They gave others the map to win it. They also understand the value of long-term cultural infiltration. Some Raptors have trained planetary militias in secret, disguised as mercenaries or survivalists. When war finally comes, these forces rise up with tactics far beyond their station, crippling the enemy before the first Imperial Guard boot hits the ground. The Raptors are not loud. They are not seen in war propaganda vids, but their fingerprints are everywhere, smudging enemy plans, whispering behind enemy lines, and carving the path to victory long before the first bomb drops. Their infiltration doctrine, so alien to the average Imperial mindset, is both their weapon and their identity. To the Raptors, infiltration is not cowardice. It is the most honest form of warfare. Strike only when it counts. Minimize bloodshed. Win before the war begins. Chapter 7. The Unseen Hammer. Raptors in large-scale warfare. Though they thrive in the shadows and work best in the surgical strike, the Raptors are not limited to stealth operations alone. In fact, when unleashed in large-scale warfare, they become something far more terrifying, a silent storm that breaks the enemies before the battle has even begun. Unlike the Codex-compliant strategies of most chapters, the Raptors adapt, improvise, and evolve in real time. They don't bind themselves to rigid formations or predictable doctrines. They observe, they think, and then they act. During the siege of Scarvis, an industrial planet overwhelmed by chaos cultists and renegade PDF units, the Raptors deployed only 2 companies. Rather than engage the enemy head-on like the Ultramarines or Black Templars might have, they began by taking out infrastructure, power stations, relay hubs, Vox towers. Within hours, the entire capital city fell into darkness. The only sound were whispers, scattered gunfire, and the occasional muted roar of a suppressed bolter. Fear spread faster than fire. The Raptors then deployed false information, planting intercepted comms that suggested a full Astartes assault was inbound. The enemy began to panic, moving troops to the wrong sectors, abandoning key defensive positions. By the time the Raptors actually did attack, with pinpoint orbital drops and synchronized ambushes, the resistance was fractured, leaderless, and consumed by paranoia. This is the Raptors' approach to mass-scale warfare. Soften the mind before you crush the body. Unlike most chapters, the Raptors place immense value on situational independence. Squad leaders are trained to act autonomously, without constant orders. Each fire team is given an objective and trusted to execute it however they see fit. This makes them near impossible to predict. An enemy general cannot account for hundreds of independent, intelligent killers moving on intuition and localized strategy. They also rely heavily on combined arms coordination with Imperial Guard, Skitarii, and even planetary militias. But while many chapters see human allies as expendable, the Raptors respect them. They often serve as field advisors, leading from the shadows, empowering local forces with tactics, intel, and morale. It's not uncommon for a PDF unit to receive precise strike timing and enemy positions mid-battle, never knowing the information came from a Raptor scout perched kilometers away. Their vehicles, too, follow the same doctrine. Raptors favor light, fast, and deadly. Land speeders, stormalons, and customized razorbacks with suppressive loadouts. Drop pods are deployed only when extraction routes are confirmed. Every piece of war gear is selected not for glory, but for efficiency. Raptors don't ride into battle on gleaming bikes waving chapter banners. They arrive in silence, execute, and vanish before the enemy knows they were ever there. One of the most chilling aspects of their large-scale deployments is the way they use fear as a weapon. After an ambush, Raptors often leave behind enemy commanders hung from ruins, or branded with their own sigils carved into armor. It's not cruelty, it's message delivery. Word spreads through enemy ranks like infection. The Raptors are here. They see everything. They're already behind you. There's a record from the Acheron Reclamation Campaign, where a Chaos-aligned planetary governor surrendered before a single Raptor drop pod ever landed. Why? Because his two most senior enforcers vanished in their sleep, and 3 Vox towers began playing garbled Imperial hymns distorted with distorted Raptor kill chant overlays. The psychological pressure broke him. The Raptors never fired a shot. Even when caught in drawn-out battles, Raptors maintain composure and adapt with terrifying speed. During the Orc raids on Barath 9, a Raptor force was surrounded after a week of attrition. Rather than hold position or call for extraction, they melted into the countryside, harassing the Orc supply lines, poisoning food caches, and luring enemy warbands into minefields they planted days earlier. By the time Imperial reinforcements arrived, the Raptors had already bled the Wyak. Drive from within. It's this fusion of tactical autonomy, psychological warfare, and adaptive combat that makes the Raptors uniquely terrifying in full-scale war. They don't just win battles. They rewrite the entire rules of engagement. Chapter 8. The Mind Behind the Shadows. Leadership of the Raptors. To understand the Raptors is to understand the mind behind their doctrine. Not just the battlefield instincts of the Astartes in the field, but the cold, calculating intellects that guide them from the darkness. At the center of this mental web lies Chapter Master Laius Isidon, known by many as the Grim Warden. He is not like the Stoic, knightly commanders of other chapters. Isidon is no shining hero clad in gold. He is a ghost in armor, a strategist of the highest order, and a master of psychological manipulation. Where Robot Gilliman speaks of structure and logic, Isidon speaks in webs and traps. He sees warfare as a game of influence, of deception, and of precision, and to those under his command, his presence is an anchor, a cold, quiet assurance that everything is already in motion and every outcome accounted for. Laius Isidon's leadership style filters down through every fiber of the Raptor's identity. He has trained his officers not to follow blindly, but to think critically, to question, and to adapt. This makes Raptor's leaders incredibly dangerous. Not just soldiers, but tacticians in their own right. His belief is simple. A space marine who cannot think for himself is only half a warrior. Under Isidon's guidance, the Raptors became infamous for a kind of decentralized command structure. While this might be heretical to more rigid chapters, it is precisely what has made them effective. In the midst of a war zone, when Vox traffic is jammed and orbital support is compromised, the Raptors don't panic, because they don't need orders to act. Each squad, each operative, already understands a greater objective. They've trained for this exact chaos. And more importantly, they've trained to outthink it. Laius Isidon also maintains a vast intelligence network. He doesn't just rely on the Adeptus Astartes for information. He collaborates with the Inquisition, the Officio Assassinorum, rogue traders, and even elements of the Astra Militarum. He cross-references planetary population shifts, economic anomalies, and religious movements to predict rebellion before it manifests. In one instance, He preemptively deployed a kill team to assassinate a planetary cult leader whose name hadn't even reached the ears of the local Arbites. How? Because a pattern of missing grain shipments and rising fatigue in shrine attendance indicated something darker was coming. That's Lias Isidon's genius. He sees a rot before it flowers. His preferred method of leadership isn't barking commands from a throne or commanding from some high mountain. It's observation, data, silence, reflection. He watches the battlefield like a hunter stalking a predator, waiting not for the enemy to act, but for them to think they're safe. And then, with surgical precision, he strikes in the place that matters most. Not always the strongest point, not the largest enemy, but the right place, the right time. He is also known for empowering the weak to do great things. There are stories, whispered in underground Vox networks, of Isidon training local PDF commanders personally, or leaving behind supply caches, field manuals, and encrypted stratagems for worlds that the Imperium would otherwise abandon. In his eyes, every piece on the board matters, even the pawns. While other chapter masters dream of glory, conquest, or martyrdom in the Emperor's name, Lias Isidon dreams of winning without the enemy ever knowing he was there. He is feared, yes, even low by more traditionalist chapters who see his ways as cowardice or unorthodox. But none can deny his results. Entire war zones turned by a whisper. Rebellions extinguished before they began. Demon incursions scattered before the ruinous powers could anchor their will. Under his guidance, the Raptors have become something that few enemies or allies truly understand. They are the blade behind the veil. And Lias Isidon, he is the hand that holds it. Chapter 9, A Shadow in the Dark, the Raptors' Tactical Approach. The Raptors have always prided themselves on being the silent killers of the Adeptus Astartes. While other chapters flaunt their raw might and unwavering faith, the Raptors demonstrate their superiority through a deadly silence, weaving through the chaos of war with an elegance and precision that is nothing short of terrifying. It is a lesson learned through generations, one born out of necessity rather than desire. They fight like shadows, moving unseen, striking with pinpoint accuracy, and then disappearing back into the darkness before their enemy can even comprehend what has happened. This unique combat doctrine is encapsulated in their tactical approach. The Raptors employ a strategy of stealth and asymmetry, using the terrain and their environment to their full advantage. Every operation, every mission, is crafted with the sole purpose of minimizing risk and maximizing efficiency. Unlike many other Astartes chapters, the Raptors rarely engage in frontal assaults or direct confrontations unless absolutely necessary. Their style is often described as fluid, a fluidity born from an intimate understanding of both the battlefield and their enemy's psychology. They do not engage their enemies in the way that most Space Marines do. No, the Raptors prefer to strike where it hurts the most, quietly and precisely, with no more force than needed to achieve their objective. Their favorite method is the use of small, elite strike teams capable of infiltrating enemy lines, assassinating key figures, and sabotaging critical infrastructure. Their ability to operate under the cover of darkness, coupled with their exceptional training in stealth, makes them nearly impossible to track, let alone defeat. In these strike teams, the Raptors don't rely on overwhelming firepower. Instead, they rely on intelligence, planning, and execution. Their specialists, equipped with advanced gear and weapons, blend seamlessly into their surroundings. They move like ghosts never seen but always felt. When a Raptor operative is assigned to a mission, the odds are already stacked in their favor. Through precise recon, tactical deception, and sheer patience, they weave a complex web of uncertainty around their enemies. They don't just strike targets. They create fear, an unseen, intangible threat that looms over the enemy until they're too afraid to act. The Raptors often employ a strategy known as a spearhead. In this strategy, a small group of Raptors infiltrates a planet or space station, causing enough chaos to draw the attention of the enemy's main forces. Meanwhile, a larger group of Raptors, often operating under the radar, strike the critical weak points: power generators, supply routes, leadership figures, creating a cascade effect that cripples the enemy's ability to mount an effective resistance. The result is a swift and decisive victory, but one that does not resemble the bloody, head-on battles that other chapters may engage in. For the Raptors, war is a dance of shadows. It is about controlling the flow of information, manipulating the movements of both allies and enemies, and using stealth to tilt the battlefield in their favor. In battles, Raptors are rarely seen. They strike from ambush, disappearing just as quickly as they arrived. They excel at counterinsurgency operations, making them invaluable to the Imperium in quelling rebellions or dealing with insurrection on a galactic scale. Their forces are capable of infiltrating entire enemy strongholds, wreaking havoc from within, and leaving nothing but destruction and confusion in their wake. Their war gear reflects their style of warfare. The Raptors favor lightweight, adaptive armor and silent, efficient weaponry designed to minimize their visibility and maximize their lethality. They are known to utilize sniper rifles, silenced bolt pistols, and other specialized tools of stealth, as well as explosives designed for precision strikes. Their combat strategy is rooted in patience, and they are more than capable of waiting for days, even weeks, to strike when the time is right. And when that time comes, the Raptors are unstoppable. Their marksmanship is unrivaled. Their ability to adapt to changing battlefield conditions is unparalleled, and their resolve is unwavering. They strike fast, strike hard, and leave nothing but a cold silence in their wake. Chapter 10, Legacy and Shadows. In the vast and endless night of the 41st millennium, where entire civilizations are snuffed out like candles in a hurricane of war, the Raptors endure, not as conquerors or idols, but as phantoms. Their legacy is not etched into marble statues or gilded honor rolls aboard the high spires of Terra. It is whispered instead in the haunted breaths of survivors, remembered by the few who saw a shadow move and lived to tell the tale. They are not the warriors of triumphal marches. They are the last hope in forgotten sieges, the answer to prayers murmured in the dark. Unlike their brothers in the more ostentatious chapters, the Raptors do not seek glory. They do not record their deeds in epic sagas, nor do they raise banners over conquered bastions. The Raptors record their history in the silence of cleared buildings, the final breath of enemy commanders who never knew death was coming, and the ticking of charges planted with cold precision beneath enemy war engines. Their triumph is the void they leave behind, a battlefield where the enemy simply vanished, the unsung architects of victory. There are countless Imperial victories for which the Raptors were never officially credited. Entire campaigns across the Eastern Fringe that ended in sudden success, where Imperial Guard regiments, on the brink of collapse, suddenly found supply lines restored, enemy artillery silenced, and leadership restored. These events are often attributed to coincidence or divine intervention, but within the inner sanctums of the Departmentum Munitorum, whispers circulate, not of miracles, but of Raptors. One such campaign was the siege of Helvaxis Prime, where Chaos forces had choked Imperial reinforcements with precision. The defenders were facing starvation, psychic rot, and mutiny. But in a span of 5 nights, the enemy began to falter. Artillery silos exploded from within. Vox relays fell silent. And when Imperial reinforcements finally broke through, they found no enemies left to fight, just corridors soaked in gore, heretic corpses shot through skulls, and raptor sigils carved in scorched walls. Coded messages for allies. No medals were awarded. No tales were told. But a world had been saved. An unorthodox path within the Codex. Though they descend from the lineage of the Raven Guard, the Raptors have diverged significantly from the teachings of the Codex Astartes. Robert Gilliman's legendary doctrine is still respected, but not blindly followed. For the Raptors, doctrine is a living thing, something that must adapt, evolve, and bend to survive the harsh realities of modern warfare, where other chapters obsess over tradition and honor in battle. The Raptors study modernity. They analyze the enemy's psychology, adapt their tech, embrace asymmetry. They use suppressors and stalker bolters instead of roaring chains words. They train to kill with silence instead of spectacle. And when Codex-compliant commanders criticize them, the Raptors simply nod and continue doing what works. This flexible, unorthodox mindset has created friction over centuries. Many within the Adeptus Astartes question their loyalty. How could a chapter that places so little emphasis on honor, rituals, ceremonies, and martial aesthetics be true sons of the Emperor? But the Raptors do not answer with words. They answer with outcomes, with wars won, with worlds preserved, with enemies dead in their own strongholds, never knowing what hit them, the shadow that watches. There's a saying among Astra Militarum troopers stationed in high-threat war zones: if you see a raptor, you're already safe. That's how rare their appearances are, and when they do emerge, they bring with them an air of finality, as if death has already been decided, and not for the Imperium. To the common soldier, the Raptors are almost myth. Urban legends speak of green-armored angels who appear when all hope is lost, dragging the wounded to safety, eliminating snipers with impossible accuracy, and vanishing before dawn. In truth, these stories are not far from reality. The Raptors often coordinate their operations with no intention of being seen. When they save, they do so silently. When they kill, they do so cleanly. When they retreat, they leave no trace. Their presence demoralizes even hardened Chaos warbands. Orcs, whose instincts favor brute force and noise, grow paranoid in silence. Tyranids, so used to overwhelming with numbers, are systematically dismantled from their fringes. Even the Necrons, in their cold logic, have calculated the Raptors' effectiveness as a variable requiring recalibration. A legacy not for monuments, but for humanity. The Raptors may never be honored in the great cathedrals of Terra. They may never see their banners hung in the High Lord's chambers. But they have earned something far rarer. Trust from those who fight on the ground, and fear from those who prey upon the Imperium. To be a Raptor is not to bask in adoration. It is to dwell in darkness, so others may see the light. It is to bleed in secret, so others may boast of victory. It is to endure pain, bear suspicion, and kill without recognition. Because in a universe without mercy, humanity needs hunters more than heroes. Their legacy lives not in brass and marble, but in the quiet breath of soldiers who made a home, in the unborn children who now live because the Raptors silenced the enemy artillery, in the shattered war machines left behind with precision-timed charges ticking in their bellies. And though they remain ghosts in the histories of the Imperium, they are very real in the places that matter most. The fields of war, the alleys of hive cities, and the broken hearts of dying empires. There, the Raptors move, and the Emperor's justice moves with them. Chapter 11, The Price of Silence. The Imperium of Man is a cathedral of war. Every planet, every citadel, every forged world echoes with the clash of steel and the chant of devotion. Billions march and die beneath banners soaked in blood. praying to a god emperor who sits silent upon his throne. In this grand and terrible machinery of survival, there are those who shout their loyalty, who carve their name into history with fire and fury. And then there are the Raptors. They are not saints. They are not martyrs. They are not remembered. They are the silence between heartbeats, the quiet before the scream. They do not ride into battle to be seen, and they do not return expecting applause. Their war is one of patience, of watching from the darkness, of understanding that in this age of endless war, the greatest victories are those that leave no songs to sing. Burden of the invisible blade. To be a raptor is to carry the burden of necessity. They know they will never be celebrated in the grand halls of the Adeptus Terra. No statues will bear their likeness. No hymns will praise their names. They operate in the forgotten corners of the galaxy, on dying moons, derelict space hulks, and hive cities rotting from within. Their victories are unrecorded, their dead buried where they fall, unmourned by all but their battle brothers. And yet they do not falter. They do not need praise. They need only purpose. The Raptor understands what most cannot. That heroism is not spectacle. It is sacrifice. It is doing the right thing even when no one will know. It is taking the hardest path, not for glory, but because it is the only path that truly serves humanity's survival. They kill without vengeance. They save without gratitude. They suffer without complaint. And still they rise. Endings in the void. It is said that when a raptor dies, his name is whispered only once by his brothers, that his deeds are recorded not in text, but in DNA, passed silently into the chapter's memory. When a raptor falls in combat, there is no great funeral. His body may not even be retrieved. Instead, his life becomes another shadow, another layer in the invisible veil that shrouds a chapter in myth. But he will have died as he lived, silently, efficiently, and for the survival of mankind. The future written in smoke. In a galaxy hurtling toward oblivion, there are few constants. But one thing remains certain. Wherever humanity is threatened, wherever the light flickers low and hope burns to embers, there will be shadows. And in those shadows, raptors move. They do not wait for orders. They do not ask for support. They arrive when all else has failed. They assess, adapt, and strike. Like ghosts in powered armor, they remind the darkness that even now, the Emperor's justice can still find you, even if you never see it coming. The Phantom Doctrine. To join the Raptors is to abandon the notion of glory. It is to enter into a covenant of silence. A war fought not for legacy, but for necessity. Recruits are not taught to charge into gunfire or recite litanies mid-battle. They are taught to think, to vanish, to listen, to choose the right moment, not the glorious one. And perhaps that is why the Raptors endure. Not because they are the strongest, not because they are the most noble, but because they are willing to do what others cannot. They are the ones who hold the line when others retreat, who stay hidden when others seek the spotlight, who become the monsters in the dark, so that humanity may sleep one more night. It is a terrible price, but the Raptors pay it gladly, for they are not warriors of glory. They are humanity's most lethal whisper. Chapter 12. Shadows beyond the battlefield. In the cold silence between wars, where the thunder of bolt guns fades and the scent of blood dries from the soil, the Raptors do not sleep. Their war is unending, a tapestry of shadows stretching far beyond the roar of open conflict. It is in these moments, these interludes between carnage, that the Raptors become something else entirely. Watchers, saboteurs, assassins, and grim reminders that the Emperor's justice does not always roar. It sometimes whispers. Unlike their brethren from other chapters, the Raptors thrive in the stillness. They become phantoms haunting war zones long after battle is declared won. While the banners of ultramarines are raised in glory and the blood angels are praised in their victory hymns, the Raptors linger in the ruins, hunting the stragglers, eliminating the cultist remnants, and purging the corruption that festers in the aftermath of war. This is where their philosophy shines most brutally. Where many Astartes see their duty as fulfilled once the last enemy falls, the Raptors understand a darker truth. Chaos festers in the cracks. It seeps into the soil, the hearts of survivors, and the unguarded minds of liberated civilians. In this regard, the Raptors act less as soldiers and more as purifiers, not with flame and prayer, but with the silent removal of threats before they ever rise again. These covert missions are rarely chronicled. The Inquisition often sees fit to hide their outcomes, and the Administratum finds no glory in such quiet efficiency. But the Imperium survives not on banners, but on vigilance, and that is where the Raptors operate, unseen yet indispensable. Within the chapter's reclusium, there are no grand chapels or golden icons. Their faith is practical, grounded in action rather than symbolism. Their chaplains do not sing sermons of martyrdom. They preach survival, adaptability, and the sacred value of precision. To the Raptors, dying in a glorious charge is not divine, it is wasteful. Every brother lost is a spear dulled, a lesson unlearned, a future shadow extinguished. Their librarians, too, do not engage in theatrical displays of warp-born power. They wield their abilities with restraint, favoring telepathic reconnaissance and subtle manipulations of enemy morale. They are mental saboteurs as much as battlefield assets, mirrors of the chapter's greater ethos. Use what is needed, discard what is not, and never reveal more than you must. There are whispers, though unconfirmed even in the halls of the Ordo Hereticus, that the Raptors have been involved in operations deemed gray by the Imperium standards. Elimination of planetary governors suspected of heresy, quiet sabotage of rival Imperial factions, even contact with non-sanctioned Xenos intelligences in the name of broader strategic gain. These are the stories no one dares investigate too closely, because if the Raptors are doing these things, it is because someone must. Their adaptability extends to their war gear, too. Raptors rarely rely on standardized loadouts. They scavenge, modify, and customize. They integrate enemy technology when useful, and they adjust tactics mid-battle without command approval in the rigid hierarchy of the Imperium. This behavior would border on heretical if it came from any other source. But from the Raptors, it's expected, encouraged. Their sergeants are granted immense autonomy. They are field leaders in every sense, tacticians, executioners, and moral compasses. Each decision is made in the moment, with full understanding that the broader mission outweighs personal survival. And yet they survive, again and again, because they are not shackled by ego or tradition. They are students of the battlefield and masters of its ever-changing face. Even among their recruits, the philosophy is ingrained early. Neophytes are not shielded. They are thrown into the unknown, trained to think, to adapt, to question. Drill masters do not praise obedience but reward innovation. Failure is dissected clinically, not punished emotionally. In this way, the Raptors do not raise warriors. They raise survivors. And perhaps that is what makes them most dangerous of all. For in a galaxy where so many fight to die gloriously, the Raptors fight to endure, to persist, to win not just a battle, but the war after the war. Their presence is not a banner. It is a whisper. It is a feeling of eyes in the darkness. It is the moment a heretic commander reaches for a weapon and finds it disabled. It is a pause in the Chaos Lord's speech, as he senses something move in the rafters above. It is a silence that comes before judgment. They are the Raptors, and long after the flames died down, they are still watching. Chapter 13, The Unseen War. In the darkest corridors of the Imperium's endless war, there exists a kind of battle that is rarely sung about in litanies or glorified in epic tales. It is not marked by the clash of chains words or the thunderous roar of bolters in an open charge. Instead, it is a war of whispers, of silent decisions made in the shadows, and of invisible knives that strike before their targets ever realize they're in danger. This is the battlefield where the Raptors reign supreme, where most Astartes focus on overwhelming firepower and frontal assaults. The Raptors have learned the sacred value of silence. Their greatest victories are the ones never witnessed, battles won through stealth, precision, and psychological terror rather than brute force. They do not seek glory, they seek victory. And to them, victory is best served quiet, clean, and final. Their deployment in the Damocles Gulf Crusade is a perfect example. While other chapters were bogged down in frontal engagements with the Tau, the Raptors worked behind enemy lines, crippling supply chains, eliminating commanders, and spreading disinformation. Where a typical engagement would take weeks of siege, the Raptors would sow fear and fracture the Tau strategy in days. Entire battalions would collapse under the weight of paranoia, unsure when or where the next phantom strike would come. Even their armor tells a story. Painted in dull greens and grays, their power armor is a study in utilitarian stealth. It is deliberately devoid of ostentation. No shining golds or flowing capes. No crests or purity seals flapping in the wind. To the Raptors, these are liabilities. Visibility is death. Glory is a distraction. They move like ghosts, blending into rubble and jungle, into the shadows of a war-torn city, becoming one with the environment until it's too late for the enemy to react. Their tactical doctrine is built around disruption. They strike at weak points, Vox relays, Medici centers, fuel depots, communications hubs. They do not aim to crush their enemy. They aim to dismember their cohesion, to make them bleed out in confusion and fear. And once their prey is disoriented, cut off, and exhausted, the Raptors descend. And yet, for all their success, their methods have earned them few allies. To more traditional chapters like the Black Templars or the Ultramarines, the Raptors' tactics are viewed with disdain. They are considered underhanded, unworthy of the Emperor's finest. To these traditionalists, war is meant to be a demonstration of righteous strength, of courage, and martial honor. But the Raptors see no virtue in honor if it leads to unnecessary death. The battlefield is not a place for pride. It is a crucible where outcomes matter more than image. The Raptors have become masters of leveraging human psychology, not just on the enemy, but among allies too. They are often sent to sectors where morale is shattered, where civilians are too afraid to resist the encroaching Xenos or heretic presence. There, the Raptors don't just fight. They manipulate. They rally resistance groups with pinpoint strikes that inspire without ever revealing themselves. They spread rumors of imperial retribution, stage ambushes designed to be seen just enough to light a spark in the hearts of cowed defenders. In many ways, they are as much myth as marine. They are the unseen saviors of dead cities and lost colonies. They are the reason some imperial citizens still whisper prayers at night, believing that if they are pure and silent, the angels in green will come to protect them. Of course, those citizens will never meet a Raptor. They will never know their names. They will never see their faces. And that is exactly how the Raptors prefer it, because in the grim darkness of the far future, it is not the loudest warriors who win. It is the ones who understand that in the age of endless war, silence is power. Thanks for listening to this lore. If you loved it, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel, Rad Lore Radio, for more videos. Goodbye.